Not in my usual spot for this one.
Okay.
Have a little varied background if you happen to be watching. Anna has her cute dog. So if you're not watching this on YouTube, Tannah's puppy is in the episode again. He's being very cute.
He's chewing on my book, though. He's chewing on my reference guide.
Back to bed.
He needs to find a proper... Yeah, he's going to chew on the bed. Ding dong. Right. Chew on this.
Puppy teeth.
Puppy teeth. He's been watched 3 times. So he should be tired here momentarily.
How's the air quality at home?
Oh
Is it
my
bad?
God. It was really bad. Like through this afternoon. It's gotten a little bit better this evening, but it smelled like a straight up campfire this morning.
Yeah. We were driving through Ohio and it was so like hazy you couldn't see. You know, like when you're like driving by and you see like trees and they like you could not see anything. It was like and it was like fog, but it's not fog. And then like I can't remember where in Ohio we were, but I like pulled up the little air quality thing on my phone and it said that the AQI was 450 something. I was like,
Yeah,
"What?"
it was
Like,
crazy.
yeah.
It was crazy. Yeah, I mean, luckily it doesn't impact me besides like it just being annoying.
Yeah.
I feel really bad for people who like have real health related reasons why this is a problem
Yeah.
because I can't imagine dealing with that. Well, you're traveling. Are you going to share what you're
Yeah.
traveling for?
We are in New York for the weekend. A little bit of a long weekend, thus the drive across Ohio. Ironman Lake Placid. Aaron was supposed to race. We talked about this in the last episode about he was supposed to race. He broke his collarbone when we went to Colorado for him to practice climbing mountains. But it was really important to him to come out and support his friend Logan in this race, even though he couldn't race it. So we decided to still come. We did have a bit of a debate actually yesterday on we had to have Royce to the kennel by noon. That was like the deadline. And so as I was driving to work yesterday, we were debating about were we still
Do we
going to do
go? Do
this?
we
Do
not
we
go?
go? Do we not go? The Airbnb is already paid for. So we'd be out that. Like it was that like back and forth, but then the gas to get out there and the food and the time and the da da da. And ultimately we kind of walked through a bit of this like well I walked Aaron through a bit of an exercise. You may have done this with Brandon before too, right? But it's like separate all of like the logic from this. How do you want to feel about it? So what does it feel like if we don't go? Like what do
Mhm.
you feel? And he was like, "Well, I feel relieved." And I was like, "Okay." And I was like, "Well, now think about if we do go, like what do you feel?" And he was like, "I feel really excited to be there for Logan and blah blah blah." And I was like, "Okay, we're going." Like, yeah. It's just money, earth dollars, can't take them with you. You don't get to watch your best friend finish an Ironman every day. So,
It's so funny. We literally had the same exact conversation when we booked flights. Then it's like we're going to a concert in Denver and we were really debating because we can always resell the tickets. Like, and we were like, do we go? Do we not go? We have so much going on in August. Like, this is just another thing. And then he's like, yeah, but we're going to be going out there. We have a couple friends that live in Denver, and one of them is one of my best friends from high school. The other is Landon's best friend from high school. And they are with their spouses out there. And he's like, I have a feeling they're going to move back to Wisconsin soon. Like, we should go visit them while they're out there. And I've never visited my friend who lives out there. And he's like, it's not like we do this every year. It's a one time. saying we need to go do it.
Unless I
It's like,
move
okay,
out
done.
there. And then you could come every year.
No, she's not moving. She's not moving. Can't think about that. We're talking about virtues. It's a verb.
Yeah, we're talking about virtues today. We can get on topic here quick. So welcome to Tannah and I's podcast. This is Enneagram Adventure, where we talk
That
about
was
the
my virtual
Enneagram.
walk away from the topic, by the way. That
I
was
know,
my
I know, I know. I
virtual
got
not
it.
fucking
Yep.
talking
Yeah.
about that.
Anyway, welcome to our podcast. Enneagram Adventure. Tannah and I are IEQ9 certified coaches with that Enneagram tool. On this podcast, we talk about everything. Sometimes we talk about the Enneagram more. Sometimes we talk about life more. We try to put it through the lens of the Enneagram regularly, but occasionally you're going to get life stories and puppy things.
So before we get too sidetracked, listen all the way through, engage, leave reviews, comments, engage with us, all of the things. And a disclaimer that the Enneagram is deeper than any other personality assessment that you may have taken before, like a Myers-Briggs or a Strengths Finder or something like that, because it measures your core motivation rather than just your behavior. I think, again, this call out is extremely relevant for the topic today. And I kind of got us in the direction of this topic because of a podcast I was listening to. So,
Yeah.
I'll
Well,
talk
maybe
about
tee us up a little
more about
bit
that in a second.
about the podcast you were listening to. So it was a podcast that Ryan Holiday was on. Not Ryan Holiday has his own podcast, but the one you listened to, he was a guest speaker on.
Yes.
And
Yes.
for
He was a guest.
and for anybody who's not familiar with Ryan Holiday, he's kind of the modern day stoic. So he's written a number of books about stoicism, including I think he's the obstacle is the way is one of them. He has like journals and all kinds of stuff. He does a ton of content related to stoicism and kind of how you apply it to modern life. So if you're not familiar, it's worth checking him out. The Daily Stoic.
Yeah.
The Daily Stoic, that's what he calls himself. Yes.
Yes. The Daily Stoic, because he is also kind of on this journey as well. And he does call it like deep work because it is. He's trying to understand how to remove his ego from certain situations and how he can manage his ego differently. And he said a lot of really interesting things on that podcast that like are spin-off topics of the Enneagram, I believe. But one of the things he said on this podcast that like kind of caught my attention immediately is he's like, virtue is what you're working towards, but virtue is a verb. Like you should always be kind of thinking about and curious about the ways in which you're arriving to that place. And he has like a bunch of different layers he talks about related to stoicism, but he talks about, for example, like how emotion isn't something that should be removed from anything. We need to think about like, why am I feeling the way that I'm feeling and work through that emotion. So hence the book, The Obstacle is the Way, as an example. So I would say like any content you can find on him is definitely worth a listen, but extremely relevant for the Enneagram because we're trying through these Enneagram concepts to be more well-rounded human beings and be a bit of all 9 numbers.
Well, and one of the key principles about the Enneagram that you'll sometimes hear people talk about is this idea of vice to virtue. So every type has a vice, and what we're trying to do is move away from our vice towards our virtue. And this is you and I we don't use this a whole lot. We don't talk about it a whole lot in terms of the Enneagram. I'm sure there are accounts that focus on the vice to virtue more than what we have, but it is an interesting idea as you're trying to like use this tool for growth and development to understand kind of making that shift closer to the virtue. And I do think it's really interesting to think of it as a verb or as an action versus just sort of like a idealized state, maybe. Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So each type kind of through the IEQ 9 concept that Holly and I are certified through, there's a word associated with each type particular to virtue. So I think for the rest of the time that we have here, we'll talk about each of those words, but I want you to kind of think about as we're working through them that it's a verb. So think of it like an action word, not a noun.
Well, and I think we can try
And
to talk
what is that
about,
like?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. What does that look like or sound like or show up like? Yeah, so I think as we go through it, we will try to help with what's the action behind that virtue.
I mean, I'm open to type 1 here. So should we kick it off
Yeah, go.
with our type
We'll
1?
go 1 to 9 today.
Strict perfectionist is sometimes what this number is referred to as, or the perfectionist. And virtue for our ones is serenity. So when ones accept the world as it is instead of standing against it, they no longer need to kind of correct everything and everyone. Critical anger has no place, and they become open to whatever kind of presents, allowing themselves to be at peace.
Yeah. So some of the things, it is hard, a word like serenity is hard to attach, to immediately be like, oh yeah, the action for that is this, right? But as you were reading through that thing, I was thinking like a big part of that is openness. Ones often that want a black and white world, right? They struggle in the gray, they struggle in the
Mhm.
nuance, it's right or it's wrong. And so it would be the openness or the curiosity that would kind of lead closer to that serenity. If that's how I think about it anyway.
I'll give you an example of something. So you and I both know a one. I was describing to him a situation with a group of other people. And the ask of that group of people to find a bit of resolution to an issue was to get some sort of like intervention to kind of call out what is happening here, right? Like there's some conflict within this group. We need someone else outside of this group to kind of say, hey, in times of stress, this is what this looks like, right? And I'm describing this situation to a one, and he immediately jumps to, well, why can't they all just get in a room and just figure this out? And well, it sounds like this is a conversation that needs to happen between these two people. Like, I don't know why we're overcomplicating it. And what instantly like came in my head for this is like, we just need to like let be what will be sometimes. Like if this is what's needed to resolve the conflict for that person, who cares?
Right.
Like why do we have a judgment attached to that?
I think that it's so easy for ones to immediately like jump to what they believe is the right thing and to like place kind of their judgment. So the other thing that could be in the action then would be to your point of, I mean, I know it doesn't sound like an action, but the sometimes leaving it alone is the right action.
So that one's interesting. So ones or any other number who knows a one, if you're thinking about that reminder, the virtue is serenity.
Yes. All
So
right, 2.
yeah. So as resident two, the I think this is important. The vice referred to is pride, but the virtue is humility. So by learning to acknowledge limits, recognize that we are not as indispensable to other people as we would like to believe, that's when kind of like pride gives way to humility. So as a result, twos are able to establish a healthy boundary and still give love as needed.
Yeah. I think what's interesting about humility is that most twos, if you were to talk to them about this, they would tell you that they're humble
Yeah.
and that they don't do the things that they do for themselves and it's not for the accolades or the this or the that. And sometimes I think there is humility in that, but I think it's recognizing how much of the time it's not, how much of the time that's false humility and that you actually did give to get, even if your give to get was, not hurtful in any way or whatever.
Yeah.
So, and I do think it is very hard for twos to ask for the help they need and set the appropriate boundaries that they need to set. So the action in true humility would be the recognition of you can't do it all. You can't do it all alone. And so you're going to ask for help or you're going to say no.
Yes. Yes. I think that also twos make humility about I'm so humble because I care so much about others. Like, look at me being self-sacrificing. Therefore I have humility. I think I've seen a lot of twos get that twisted.
Yeah.
Also, I have heard twos overshare the skill that we have to overshare, if you want to call it a skill, is at times used to like give false humility.
Yes. Yeah. Which is the same
It's a
as pride.
manipulative, it's a
It's
manipulative
it,
way
yes.
to
Still
show
pride.
to show humility. So yeah, I think there's a really
Fries. Sorry, I have to eat dinner while we're doing this, so keep going.
that's great. There's a really
I didn't have less wraps, but
uncomfortable
it's in full.
way to find this humility. And it is truly finding the things that you are bad at, like truly bad at. And Ryan Holiday was talking about this actually on the podcast where when he's like, when I think about the success that I've had in the books that he sold or anything like that, he doesn't think about all the things that went well. He thinks about the things that didn't, because he has this way of talking about, and it's like pride, right? It's a success to a certain level breeds, what did he say? That it breeds entitlement and complacency. So like the bigger your head gets, the more prideful you get, the less likely you are to seek out the real opportunities that you have. He's like, you should be constantly putting yourself in a space where you are outwitted, outworked, outsmarted, are the subject matter expert in the room.
I think about that all the time from the standpoint of, that saying of you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. I don't want to be the one bringing the average up. So I always think about that of like, how do you surround yourself with people who are better than you, smarter than you, or whatever, who are going to help you raise your game?
It's the same thing he says about, like, even he was talking about political views. He's like, it's our duty as citizens to be like educated or whatever, I think is how he said it. And then he's like, so, and this isn't like a plug, I'm not saying I believe this or I don't, but like watching both perspectives is just like watching one perspective and feeding yourself the same thing over and over and over again just to prove yourself right. He used politics as the example, is not going to make you well-rounded.
Yeah, I think that's true for a lot of things. this is one of the downfalls of social media, is that you end up in an echo chamber of your own beliefs, because the algorithm will keep showing you more of what you engage with. There's another kind of big entrepreneur guy who talks about the algorithm doesn't like shape you, the algorithm reveals you. And so if you need to change your algorithm, you got to start engaging with other content. And then your algorithm will be different. But it's that same idea, right? Like, you need to look, don't just get caught in your own echo chamber. Regardless, it doesn't have to be politics. Politics is a good example, but it could be anything. So 3s.
3s. Virtue is hope for the 3s. So when 3s connect to hope, that's when they begin to believe the world might be generous and support them without having to earn that space. They express needs with hope that they'll be fulfilled rather than substituting them for goals that are external. With hope, 3s can experience the joy of who they are rather than the image they create and the profound feeling of being accepted, flaws and all.
I think hope's easier to think about as an action, but I had a conversation recently with a 3 where it felt a little bit like hopeless, right? I can't remember what the vice is exactly for 3, but this conversation we had,
deceit.
This felt a little, this was not that he was moving to deceit. This was not going to vice as much as it was going to maybe to last week's episode, but a little bit to the faking bad side, right? Like, we're headed down a uncomfortable path and I'm not feeling good about it, and so I'm kind of losing hope.
Yeah. I mean, the triggers for 3s are, not receiving credit for their work, being blamed for others' poor work, not looking good professionally. Like, so if I'm thinking this is the same conversation that we're calling back to, yeah, I could see that.
I think
I could see that.
The not needing to perform, the not looking externally. Hope is an internal thing. And actually, a lot of these, as we're going through them, right? Humility, serenity, hope. These are things that are going to be internal. And to the point of Ryan Holiday talking about it virtue being an inside, or being deep work, right? That all of that starts with you first.
Yes.
So.
Yes.
Okay, 4.
Okay. 4, our vice is envy. So this is kind of a lengthy one, but
What was the virtue?
so yeah, I'm not gonna like drain the vice, but the virtue, the reason I bring up the vice is because it's equanimity.
Oh, equanimity. Got it.
Yes. Equanimity. So when 4s both see like positive and negative qualities in equal measure, so they're not like over the top in one or the other, right? As a result, they're not comparing themselves to others, nullifying envy, and kind of that fundamental belief that what other people have is better.
Right.
It's a good way to summarize it, I guess, because I think the vice is important for that one to understand first, because I can't even say the word for virtue for 4s.
And the vice of envy, to that point of what you're saying, right, is this 4s believing that almost like they have a missing piece and somehow everybody else isn't missing a piece. And that's where the envy starts to come in, of like, everybody else is normal or everybody else is whatever. And then they flip to that, like, well, I don't want to be normal anyway. Right. And
so the verb is a little tougher there, but I feel like it's like balancing. Like you're balanced between this. Okay. Resident 5.
Well, I do know these for myself. So the 5s is avarice, which is essentially hoarding. And that shows up like hoarding of knowledge, hoarding of time, could be hoarding of resources, hoarding affection or emotional response to things. And then the virtue is non-attachment, which is something that I work on a lot. And when we think about non-attachment as a verb, it's the releasing the expectations of outcome. And that, regardless of if you're a 5 or not, that can be really hard to do. I don't know if the book says anything else about non-attachment that would be worth calling out that we could talk about the action of.
It is interesting because it talks about 5 detaching from isolation when they appreciate they can better understand the world by being a participant in it, which I don't really see that in you.
I mean, it's true. There are things in my life where isolation, and I don't know that I isolate the same. I don't think every 5 necessarily isolates as you imagine, because sometimes the isolation, I can have people around me and like I might as well be by myself kind of isolation. Like I retreat back into my own head. But there can also be, it can be really hard to show up and participate. And I've had to build that muscle over time because there have been times where things have felt so overwhelming to participate in. It's like I'd rather just sit at home and think about participating than actually go participate. But some of that is like, again, detaching from there having to be any sort of meaning or any sort of outcome related to the thing that we're doing or related to the group that I'm going to be a part of, right?
Yes.
But non-attachment, that's like such a every person should be working towards non-attachment. We would all be because then you're never offended by anyone, right?
Yeah.
Then it's easier to assume positive intent because you're not attached to some expectation that you have for the other person. My expectations for other people get me in trouble all the time. And yeah, Aaron and I had a discussion about it in the car ride today about like how I have just this expectation for how people will communicate or how people will show up or whatever, and then I'm just like constantly disappointed. And if I weren't attached to these expectations that I have, I wouldn't be disappointed. I wouldn't have bad feelings.
Yeah.
So constantly working on that.
Okay. 6. Virtue for 6 is faith. So when 6s step into courage, and 6s are loyal skeptic, when they step into courage, they're recognizing that any safety and security fears that they have are largely thought up in their own head. So when they're stepping into faith, they're not inhibited by those. They start to question those assumptions and they act without deferring to rules or ideology of others. So that speaks to kind of that people-pleasing part for a 6. So, yeah, go ahead.
I mean, the action of faith is to like believe in the unseen or believe in the things that are not it's like it's the trust, it's all of that. And I think 6s can struggle so much to trust anyone, right? There can be a lot of resistance towards believing people, and they can push back and be sure that the story or the scenario that they've come up with is the correct one. And yeah, to truly move to the place of faith for them would be to like not need to worst case scenario plan.
Yeah, not need to worst case scenario plan. And if they have done that in their head, it's the action of working backwards to walk that back. Like if you're in a space where you just can't quite help yourself, at least try to get to the point where you can walk back and challenge the assumptions.
Before you do anything silly. Like make
Definitely.
accusations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Seven.
So, seven's virtue is sobriety. Sobriety tempering the seven's gluttonous hunger for stimulation, moderating themselves by slowing down and anchoring themselves in the here and now. They experience more of a quality, quantity life balance.
So it's going to look like actions that keep them present. Not worried about the next exciting thing that's coming an hour from now, 2 hours from now, a year from now, right? What are we doing in this moment? And how do you feel good in this moment?
How do we feel good in the moment, and how do you, it's like, it's interesting. It feels a little bit like an oxymoron. It's a verb, but like you're slowing down.
Yeah, this is the dial the urgency back a little bit.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of sevens get caught up in the moving really fast and being kind of urgent because they don't want to miss anything.
Yeah. This is the, like, the tortoise wins, not the hare, and stop and smell the roses.
And it's going to take some uncomfortable, you're going to be uncomfortable. Meditation would probably be I think meditation is probably good for every number, but if you think about it for a 7, right? Like, can you even like sit still and for 5 minutes?
Yep. Yeah. This is something that Ryan Holiday was talking about on this podcast too, where he's like, if it's a meditation, even if you're not ready for that yet, just the act of journaling your thoughts because you're still ruminating in something and you've stopped to realize I'm moving too fast. I need to process. I need to be present. I need to understand. And so 7, if you're feeling anxious about it, like, take a moment, write it down, like rehash it.
There's no water in it.
Sorry, I was looking for my water.
Oh, okay. 8's virtue is innocence for 8. So when 8's move into innocence in virtue, they are more open-hearted, and in a state of innocence, they appreciate and experiences the nuances of life without judgment or jaded expectation, neutralizing their drive for excess and intense experience. I see this most in like the truest sense of the form with my 8 husband when he is playing with our children. When he enters that mode with our kids, he is a child himself. Like, this man is a child with a Nerf gun running around my home. And he's having fun. It's light. It's silly. There's no expectation tied.
Yeah, and I can't remember exactly what the line was that you read, but like the judgment, there was something about judgment in there, right?
Yeah. Like experiencing the nuances of life without judgment or jaded
Yeah.
expectation.
Yeah. And when you said that, what I thought of was like including the judgment of yourself, right? Like I recently had an experience with an 8 where I had this realization of like, oh, there's some super judgment of self going on here. That's like blocking to that point of having a lighthearted moment. Like, and it was very much about like, yeah, like holding this judgment of themselves and being like, I don't want to be a part of that because XYZ. But then it was like aimed at them.
I think that they can, if you think about innocence in the sense of like, you're a kid and your feelings get hurt. Like, if you're an adult and your feelings get hurt, you should be able to experience the nuance of life of getting your feelings hurt without judging yourself for having a feeling, particularly if you're sad or disappointed.
Yeah. And without taking your ball and going home and hiding.
Yes. Yes.
And all of those feelings are like valid and all of that stuff.
Yes.
And like, I think about this all the time. Like, if you just sit here and have the feeling and let the feeling process through and just whatever, it'll be over in a few moments. Maybe a little longer if it's like a particularly hard thing, but like the actual nervous system thing of emotion is pretty short. It's the ruminating on it that makes it last. So like, if you just like feel it all the way through, it's okay. You'll be fine.
You will be fine. 9s.
Fines.
Virtue is right action. So, about moving out of inertia and discovering their own intention and purpose and acting on them. By discovering what they really believe and acting on what they authentically think and feel, 9s begin living more fully.
Yes. It's very easy for 9s to get caught up in, to that point, the like momentum of life, the habit, this is what we do every day, this is where we go, this is where we, these are all of the things. And to get caught up in that and end up, I don't want to say taking wrong action, but sometimes maybe it is out of alignment action, right? It's not the
I was
right
just gonna
priority
say.
or yeah. So to get to the place of being able to discern what right action is and to move in that direction.
Maybe
Yeah.
it's not right action. Maybe it's aligned action.
Yeah, I like aligned action
I'm
better.
kind of stuck with that because it
yeah, because
it's right for them. Like, I get the intention, right?
Yeah.
It's right for them. But
yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes right action for a 9 might be any action at all.
Like having an opinion.
Yeah. Stating what they need.
Making a choice. Yeah.
Right.
Well, that was fine.
Good. Thank you, Ryan Holiday, for the inspiration.
That's good.
Yeah. Bodhi didn't eat your book, so we're good.
Yeah. He's chewing in his little gross bone down there. Little demon. Did get a drop on a name for like a local daycare that I can take him to.
Nice.
So we'll have to see.
Once we get through some of the craziness of summer, because we have one more big race weekend coming up in August, but we'll need to do a puppy play date.
Yes, we would love that. And you know what? He loves to chase.
Which is Flora's favorite.
He loves it.
Yes.
Yeah, he gets the last round of puppy shots tomorrow and we're all good. But
nice.
Other than that, podcast-wise, don't forget what I said at the beginning. If you're still here, engage.
Like, subscribe, comment, leave us or send us a DM, subscribe on Substack, all those things, slide into our DMs. I did get a message from Hector, because we mentioned a couple podcasts ago about wanting to have him on to talk about some 4 things. And he's like, yeah, I'd love to come back on. So we will have to try to schedule some time for Hector to get back on.
That sounds great.
Yeah. So Hector, we'll get some dates, or send me some dates if you listen to this, and we'll get some stuff figured out.
Awesome. Well, safe travels. I'll be tracking your location. And I miss you already.
I'll be back on Tuesday. Should be back on Tuesday. So.
Great. Have fun.
Okay.
I'll be following along.
All right. Have a good night.
Okay, bye.
Bye.